Hi all, and with it being the new year, I thought this would be a good time to do a short show about how to keep yourself motivated on a painting project. Well, how I keep myself motivated um, painting up an army, because as we all know, unless you're a real hardcore hobbyist, it can get a bit difficult to run through. I have a horde of half-started, half-finished projects lying in my hobby cave, and generally the painting is the part I tend to stall quite a lot at. So I thought I'd just do a quick show to kind of talk about how I'm looking forward to sort of what I'm looking to do through the next year, painting wise, and how I'm planning to sort of keep myself motivated. Um, so the first step is make sure whatever the hell you're going to do excites you. It can be quite you can get sometimes, especially if you're more competitive, get distracted trying to pick an army that's particularly nasty or powerful. But if it doesn't actually excite you to play, you're going to struggle to be excited to paint it. So I think it's one of the kind of key things I do whenever I'm looking at a new army, even if I'm trying to find something nasty. I always ask myself quite honestly, can I face painting this? Yes, this might be a very good army, but do I actually want to bother painting it? Because if the answer is no, then it's not going to happen. And I take a bit of pride in painting my own stuff and try and improve myself every army since I've sort of started painting maybe about 10 years ago. So I always try and improve and improve my skills as I go. So, it's quite a point of pride to me to put in that effort. So I think that's the kind of the first thing. Just make sure sort of you enjoy the army, because if you don't, you're going to struggle. The next thing now, my standard tactic when I get a new army is first of all I sort of build the list, and then I just leave the list sitting in Battle Scribe for a while, and I'll look at it over 2 3 weeks, generally almost about a month. And if after a month I'm still looking at the list and going, yeah, that excites me, then I start thinking about buying it. So for this year, for instance, I'm planning doing orcs. So I'd picked a list back in November. I looked at it for a few weeks and it was a good strong list, but it didn't excite me. So it got repicked at the start of December to a list that sort of has stuck with me now, and I'm liking. So I've sort of bought in the first few boxes of orcs to sort of start painting it once I finish my current herd project. And that's the very first thing. Whenever I start a new army, just buy one or two units and paint them. Don't buy the whole army. I just buy one or two units, paint them, so especially the first five, say, and get them painted up on the shelf. And then I do it in fives. I personally prefer to paint in fives. I know some people like to paint everything and then each layer at a time, but I personally can't do that. I tried that and I found it was just a grind. So I like to sort of shorter chunks, paint up five models, move on to the next. I've tried different amounts, but generally for your rank and file infantry, everything like that, five models is a kind of nice number for me. And initially I just start painting them up in small blocks of five and just looking at what I've done and not really paying attention to the army. And there comes a point when I start to struggle. There comes a point when I lose motivation, especially when you're trying to burn through the rank and file, which I try and do sort of early on to some degree, where I start to lose motivation. And at that point, I'll go, right, time to spend the rest of the money, and I go buy the rest of the army. I just buy in everything. And that starts to get me excited again. And that will get me going for a wee bit longer, because now I've got everything there and I can sort of starting to see the end line inside, and I'll start painting a bit more. And I try and reward myself by mixing in painting characters, which is more enjoyable than painting rank and file. So I maybe do 10 rank and file models, one character, 10 rank and file, paint a monster, and that kind of thing, just to kind of mix it up and give you a kind of little reward for painting small chunks. But eventually, even then, I will start to wear out. This is what happened with my herd. I'd done the initial paint up maybe about 3 years ago, because I started doing it as a fantasy army. And then I picked it up again. I started painting. I got bored, so I bought everything else, and that got me excited. I started painting, and then I started to struggle again. So I built everything. At that point, I just went and built and got it all on movement trays and built it all so I could start playing with it. And at that point, I find it's quite good, because then I can sit down, I can look at the whole army and see how much I've done. So generally, at that point, I've painted like two-thirds of the army at least. So suddenly, you're over the halfway line, and it's why I learned not to start but initially by buying the whole army, because I used to do that, and then you paint like 10 and you'd look at it and go, oh god, that's 10 done and I've got 60, 70 more to do. That's going to take forever, and I found it quite disheartening. Whereas if I start small, build that up and it looks quite good, and then when you slot in the whole army, you see what little you've got left to do, it starts to feel a lot better. And then you can start playing with the army as well and getting your practice games in again, and that I find is a big motivation for me. So that's why I'm kind of driving on in my herd and trying to get that through to completion really. Now, hopefully, by the end of January. I had hoped to do it over Christmas, but as usual with painting, everything seems to always take me 2 or 3 times longer than I budget for, no matter how sort of prepared I try and be. The other kind of key thing I find is sharing the pictures online. It does actually help. I enjoy, just share your pictures. You may not be an expert painter, you may not be a fantastic painter, but you don't have to be. The community, especially the Kings of War Facebook, for instance, is a really sort of the friendly bunch. No one's going to rip into you, and everyone's a different level. We can't all be Mr. Average and top painter. Some of us, there's always going to be those of us who can't. And it's all about personal improvement. The only person I'm painting against is myself. My last army, to be exact. I'm just trying to do my last army and go one better. And you just want to be able to do it to the point where someone at a tournament looks at me and goes, "That's a nice army." That's it. That's all I'm personally after. I've won a few best painted in some small tournaments at some small systems I've played in the past, but I'm never gonna win best painted at Kings of War, and that doesn't bother me. It's just sort of a point of personal pride to kind of push my painting skills forward, because I find if you don't, what you can end up doing is just producing lots of low level painted armies. And you can, if you're not interested, you can easily do 3 colours in a wash and be done with it. And it's no problem. You could churn out an army in a month or two, and, easily enough. But, I'm assuming if you're sort of looking at your projects and you're struggling to finish, part of that is you want to take some pride in the army and you want to kind of improve your skills a bit. So that's just my kind of guide of how I approach painting an army anyway, sort of from start to finish, and keep myself motivated. Oh, the other thing I forget, and this is probably the kind of key one for me, is I always try and improve on myself every army. So whenever I start a new army, I try and pick up 3 or 4 new techniques or differences compared to what I've done in the past to improve myself. So, for instance, when I was doing this herd army, I decided I wanted to actually start to thin the paint. It's something I've never done before. I normally paint straight from the tub. So I started thinning the paints for the herd army. I wanted to bring in a little bit more conversions, a little bit more green stuff into it. I wanted to experiment with colours I never used before, so I'm painting them purple of all things, quite a bright colour. My initial plan was to paint them white. I had a dose of common sense and changed it to purple very quickly. But that's the kind of things I find, so that every army I improve, so that when I sit my current project next to my previous project, it looks better. And then again, that is another motivator for me to complete it, because I want to show off that I've done all this and I've put in this effort. And yeah, I find that's the other reward in itself. Seeing when I look at the very earliest models I painted to where I am now, I feel quite chuffed about that. So I think just the key thing is just find whatever, everyone's different. What motivates me is sort of personal improvement and getting a new army painted up in the tabletop. I know some people say, paint for a tournament. That's a good driver, and it's true to some degree. I used to do that when I played Warhammer 40k a lot, especially paint for tournaments. And it's good when you're starting a system to get that first army just done, to force you to get your first army painted so you can start playing. So tournaments are quite a good driver for that. But now I do not want to paint for a tournament. I don't want to have to force myself into an artificial deadline just to use the army. I would rather wait till I've painted it properly now. That's just personal preference. Some people just like to burn through them. Part of the way I paint though is I don't go back to models. I know some people will paint to a basic standard, then go back and do all their highlights that later in the army and sort of build it up over the year. Personally, the idea of going back and putting a paintbrush in a model that I'd finished with is just, no, I'm not doing that. I like to have a model complete before I even finish. So that's what I normally do. I just completely paint up the whole army and then I'm done with it and move on to my next project. So yeah, hopefully you found that useful. Good luck. I'll hopefully do another podcast soon just about what the actual plan is for the new year and a bit about what I'm planning on painting. Got quite a few exciting things Kings of War wise coming up next year as well. So I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. Catch you all later.